Today on the Idiot's Guide, we are diving into one of the most illuminating inventions in history, the light bulb. It's easy to take for granted, but for the simple act of flipping a switch, click, that changed the way we live, we work, and dream. But how did we go from gas lamps, to Thomas Edison's breakthrough, to the modern LED lighting up of, your favorite TikTok videos on your phone? And what's the true societal impact of having light on demand? In today's episode, we're exploring the invention of the light bulb, its evolution into modern lighting, and how this glowing invention transforms society as we know it. Ready? Let's light it up. I'm your host, Adam Richardson, aka the Profit Hacker, and I'm joined by the man in charge, Mr. Joe Haslam. Welcome to the Idiot's Guide. All right, so as we were discussing kind of before this episode, I think there's some tension we need to kind of air out before we make much progress in it, because, I think, my outline and my research, I am aware of what the tension is, that Thomas Edison tries to take all the credit for this incredible discovery as if he's that fantastic. But
he tries to take the credit for everything.
Basically, yeah. And honestly, like, if you had a bunch of money and was able to hire the smartest engineers on Earth, scientists, whatever you want, and then because of that, you just, at that point, take all the credit for it all because you're a great employer, is that too different from modern day capitalism?
No. I mean, Edison was a great capitalist. I mean, he was able to hire people to make stuff for him, and then he took all the credit for it.
Which he gets paid for, right?
Yeah, and then he markets it and makes money that allows him to hire more people. Or if he can't hire people to invent this stuff, he just goes to the original inventor, buys the patent from them, and pretends that he was the one that made it. He owns the patent, so he was the one. We talked about this with weed whackers and all those things. It's some of these things are patents that you sell the patent to someone else, and now you have it. So, I mean, he was very, very good at fooling people, the public, into thinking that he was a genius. Kind of like someone else we know in society today. I'm not going to name names. But, when it comes to things like electric cars, it does seem like there's someone today that has the same kind of idea of, paying for patents and acting like he's a genius.
I'm curious if you're talking about someone that I might know. I guess the one thing that comes to mind is there's this guy that has a car named after a scientist in history that has to do with electricity, right?
Yeah. But okay. But we're talking about Edison right here, so we'll get back to talking about Edison. Just
potato.
Some modern day similarities to Edison. And Tesla was one of Edison's counterparts in his day. So Tesla did a lot of great work, and Edison took some credit for some of Tesla's work. But
I think the one who ended up basically getting the short end of the stick was, you said, Swan, right?
Yeah, so Joseph Swan invented the light bulb as we know it today at least 10 years before Edison.
Okay.
Long before. Now, technology hadn't caught up yet. And so, the vacuum tube system wasn't great. The filaments that he was working with weren't great. The methodology just wasn't quite there. But as time went on, he kept fiddling with it and changing, and technology improved. And coincidentally, the same year that Edison had his miraculous breakthrough in creating the light bulb was the same year that Swan did and filed a patent for it. So wild. And then Edison patented his light bulb that didn't actually work. And then after it was patented, a few years later, he tested another filament and found, oh, hey, this one works even better. I got it now.
Interesting.
And so it was, and at that point, he bought Swan's patent and became the inventor of the light bulb.
Okay, so we can agree that that's a form of capitalism. And it might not be the most ethical or most, friendliest way, but, when you get your name in the history books because of it, I suppose that was the achievement, the legacy that you built.
The victors write the history.
Okay, so one of the way I think about this is possibly some of the pushback of our societal change to accepting something like electricity in general. Now we're playing with electricity to illuminate things instead of it just being gas lanterns and that kind of stuff, or gas light streets, the original gas lighting. Mm-hmm. But I guess maybe the resiliency to stand up against that change. I don't know Swan's financial position in the world. I just know that Edison had the financial backing of investors that really, were trying to help push this, much like our modern elements do. And in that, there's always going to be people. We talked about this in the last one, the
good old Luddites,
and how there's this resistance to going away from the traditional means to light up a house or light up a street light or a street side and that kind of stuff. So you're introducing some things that Edison had the financial backing to withstand the pressure that society might be pushing back against it. And that, I don't know Swan's situation or position to where that could have been his case as well.
Yeah, no, if we want to add, Edison was no dummy. You do have to give him credit, not for his inventions. He did not invent that stuff. But you can give him credit as a great businessman. He was great at marketing. He was great at convincing people. He was a great businessman. So if we want to give Edison true credit for what he did, it was not the inventions that he supposedly made. It was the ability to take other people's inventions, because inventors are generally not good at business. They're inventors. They're focused on what's next, what's new, all this stuff. And so he took that and he was able to market it. Now, he did that in a very unhealthy capitalist way, and a lot of the inventors never got credit for it and things like that. So, there's a lot of detraction, in my opinion, on Edison. But he was a great businessman, and he was able to market, he was able to push, he was able to convince people to use the inventions that he found.
It's interesting to think, I think it's somewhere over 1,000 or something like that of the different things that Edison, has a patent or owns the patent for. Something like, he 1,093 patents were the product of teamwork, basically. So his teams that he had put together with scientists and whatnot were that element. But I think one of the things that I would say this is, back in the day when they didn't have AutoCAD, they didn't have a bunch of customer service reps sitting on a computer, making sure that the mainframe network for wiring to replace the gas lines that fed the lanterns in the street and now replaced them with light bulbs, electric light bulbs. First in, is that Rosalie or Roselle, New Jersey. I bet somebody in New Jersey is like, that's it, But, honestly, the gas-lit streets of America, that was kind of the revolution of that. I don't know if that's necessarily a thing that I can attribute back to Swan, but I would say that that's not, Edison's brain. It's probably his team that said, let's work together. How can we find a more efficient way of doing this and spreading out the electricity? And that was kind of the birth of the network the net of electricity that we still use to this day.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly it. I mean, it's the same thing with like gas vehicles. Most people don't know that electric vehicles are not a new technology.
Right.
You know, electric vehicles were actually more popular back in when vehicles were first being introduced. They were more popular. And every rich person had an electric car.
All the kids wanted Power Wheels back in the 80s. They still do.
But the gas and using gasoline was marketed to be the better option.
Yeah.
And so they built an infrastructure of gas stations where you could go anywhere and fill up your car with gas. And it's the same kind of thing, is that when you produce the infrastructure, then the technology, the adoption of the technology follows. We see that today with the lack of infrastructure for electric vehicles. They're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
As that infrastructure builds, then yes, we will have more electric vehicles. But until we actually have the infrastructure, it's not there. And that's, again, what Edison did really well. He built the infrastructure because he had tons of money from taking other people's inventions and selling them. And so now he was able to build the infrastructure and convince people to change.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's marketing. That is what marketing does. We see that in everything that we do every day. You know, that's why things are popular, is because it's all marketing. You know, the Stanley Cups, is that what they were? The mugs, the big popular, okay, Stanley Cups. Stanley Cups have been around for a while before, and they are nothing special. Nothing special.
There's a new lawsuit out for them because they keep exploding and blowing up into people's faces.
There you go. But Stanley Cups.
Video of people getting injured by it. So I'm like, oh, wow, that's terrible.
Stanley Cups went viral. All these things, they go viral. Steve Jobs, this was his capability. You know, you think about the popularity of the iPhone. That was because Steve Jobs was amazing at marketing. He could get anyone to buy such a simple product by hyping it up and making it sound fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, you think about the difference between Apple and Microsoft. You know, Apple was great at marketing when Steve Jobs was there. Take out Steve Jobs, Microsoft has an opportunity to step in, and they became the popular one. Steve Jobs comes back, Microsoft hits the curb, and now Apple is the big one. It's all about marketing. Microsoft was never good at marketing, but Apple was. And so Apple became the popular product. And so it's this idea, and then they had the money because of the marketing. Now they could do better products, et cetera. That's all it is with the light bulb and Edison.
You know, what's interesting is like we've shifted in our society to not even recognize that everything we do. I mean, you walk into a room, you flip on a switch. That's what you do. You're like, oh, it's dark in here. Click it on. Like, you don't think any element of this long history and debate and challenge and everything that's been overcome and the evolution of what that light bulb consists of. You know, some light bulbs are, I mean, even it's stylistically, like I have 2 light bulbs in my house that look like old light bulbs. I've had them for, 7 years. And they're like huge filament, giant bulb. I'm like, that would not last 7 years if it was an original.
Yeah.
I think the bulb is actually made of plastic. You know, like all those sorts of things. It's just effective the way that they've done this. But, you know, as an accent now, they're still trying to kind of, you know, decorate your house with something that looks vintage that isn't, but still carries that, you know, the cool look, but the modern technology of light bulbs. But, you know, seeing that we are very dependent on lights. Our set here that we're sitting in is extremely lit. Like there's light everywhere around us right here. And in order for us, I have to position them so that they get the right light on us while we're talking.
And we blank out all of the natural light.
Yep. Yeah. So, you know, from the very first time that a house basically gets electrified and, you know, and cities get electrified, and you've introduced this grid, which, you know, Edison is credited for the first power station basically in New York, and and then the lanterns or the street lights in New Jersey. But the idea is that, I think we just take it for granted. We don't really recognize how dependent we are on light every day. Our cars, we have headlights, we have lamps inside of our car. We're getting in, we open it up, we want lights inside there. My lights don't work when I open my car door. It drives me nuts because I have to turn them on if I need to adjust something. And so when I open up the door and I'm like, I've got to see if did I get I got all these groceries or something like that? No. I have to reach in, turn the light on, check, and then make sure I remember to shut it off. But it's this, even that little tiny light bulb is something that's goes back this far in history, and it's not something that we really put a lot of thought into usually. So
we have light bulbs on our phones.
Yeah.
Everywhere we go, we've got a flashlight.
Yep.
And it's everything we do now is based on that artificial light. And none of that exists without electricity.
Yeah.
Without the grid, without everything that we have to keep it moving forward, to keep us in light. And
so before we shine a light on the next point, let me ask you a quick favor. If you're enjoying this episode and learning something new, hopefully, hit that like button. It helps more people discover the channel. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll never be left in the dark about our future episodes. Your support means the world. Let's keep the conversation glowing.
wow.
Is that terrible?
That's
I
awful.
liked glowing, kind of like the glow of the nice glow of a light bulb. No, whatever. Hater.
Yep.
Okay, so now we transition, and let's say, our old-fashioned, the vintage light bulbs, probably one of the biggest things that you run into is they get really hot.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, I had a light bulb that was in like a desk lamp or something, like a nightstand, a lamp on there, and that light bulb got so hot, oh my gosh. One time I had my sister's Barbie, and I stuck her head to the light bulb, and it melted all of her hair to the light bulb, every strand. So we had to cut her head. So she had this flat top. It was the late 80s, so I was like, it's all right.
The
It's
Barbie mullet, yeah.
But I learned a lesson. Light bulbs are super duper hot. And that's honestly, it's weird because you think about how it becomes this, I don't know, is it the incandescence, or that's an incandescent basically, is the ones that are really hot, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you have the invention, halfway through the 20th century, that you're talking fluorescents and halogens. Halogens are really hot too.
Oh, yeah.
So you're talking, you don't want to touch these. That one that would burn the Barbie's hair, I don't want to touch it because I'm going to burn my hand. And you're they always talk about that, where you're it was crazy because growing up, if I screwed one of those light bulbs in, it was almost instantly.
Yeah.
That's how fast those filaments in the light bulb were really lighting up and heating up.
Yeah.
So,
well, the heat was the electrical current through it was a really inefficient system because it's running a current through a filament. And so it gives off light, but it also gives off a ton of heat.
Right.
And so you're losing a huge amount of energy just to heat loss. And so just really, really inefficient, but it worked.
right.
And also really low light. It did not produce a lot of light. Lumens were really low on those.
Yeah. Now you're talking you can pick, especially in those, and they're much more efficient now because obviously you have new more modern technology. But even as those improved, they got less, hot. They weren't as hot as they used to be. But then fluorescent bulbs, office lights, you go in and you turn the office light on, or whatever, some homes have them in garages or whatever it is a lot of times. Or I see most of the fluorescents in office spaces, that kind of stuff.
Well, then you've got the neons, and then
Yeah.
at every
I'm trying to think of like the application of a halogen bulb. Halogens are more like baseball fields.
So halogens were super powered.
I remember
super
they
hot, but
used
super
to be,
powered.
Used to be
garages is where I knew them to be used the most, like garages.
Big garages, yeah. Like a lot of those were, you'd turn those halogens on, and they wouldn't turn on instantly, if I remember correctly. You had to they
slowly heated up, yeah.
Yeah, and then
you could see the entire neighborhood with one light.
Yeah, and you'd sit there, and once it's hot, man, that thing, you don't want to look at it because it's gonna burn a hole in your eyeball.
Oh yeah.
And so that's okay, sure, like a little bit more energy efficient, I suppose. The draw on a fluorescent bulb was not nearly the draw that an incandescent was, because you're talking one solid like electrical current that you're visibly able to see basically in a light bulb.
Right.
And then the fluorescent is what you're talking when you're seeing like the long white, or basically that strip of light basically that has a gas inside. I can't remember what the gas is.
I'm not sure what the gas is, but yeah, that's the idea, is that it's heating up the gas that produces that same with a neon light.
But
well, to fluoresce is to glow.
Oh darn it.
And so a neon light has
Thanks, Joe.
neon gas in there, and so that's why it glows and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's where it uses a more efficient method rather than just running it through a coil. Halogens are like a fluorescent bulb on steroids.
Yeah.
And so it produces a lot more heat, but it's no more efficient than a light bulb. It just lasts longer at a higher intensity.
Yeah.
And so that's where those came in.
And probably now our most energy efficient is the LED.
Yeah.
LED is in everything. In this studio space, what is lighting up this entire room right now is LEDs. All of them are LED. And,
do you know what LED stands for?
No, electric dot something. No.
Light emitting diode.
It's okay.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. It was so, I think, I don't even know, I don't even know the history of when the LED was created, but ultimately off the same philosophies, you're just using a diode to reduce the energy output from the wire, but making sure that when you encase it in the light has a it's like a combination of the filament that's in a fluorescent and the incandescent lighting encasement really condensed down, and that's a reactive element.
Yeah.
And so you have something that like those things have no heat off of them. And the only problem that I run into this because I have LED lights in my bedroom is they take so little electricity that if I go and I've been working, like I walk and I'm wearing socks and I go into my room, let's say I pull the light off the wall and I'm wearing socks, walk through my carpeting, and I go up and I take the wires, it will light them up lightly. There's enough static electricity on me to light up
they
little light
very
of
efficient.
LEDs, and they're super bright. Like I have dimmer switches on mine, but there's enough of my house is built old enough that the ground is not solid, the grounding in my house. And so I have this night light in my house or my room because I can't ever shut my bedroom light off. It doesn't turn off.
Oh.
So it's always there. And that's not a big deal. I bought them on Amazon, so I was like, yay, this is cool, but also
Bit of extra radiation going on in your house?
I just have a little extra static electricity hanging out. Probably not code, but don't admit that.
I'd probably get that checked for radon or something. There's radiation emitting somewhere. But yeah, I mean, so the LEDs are significantly more efficient. So they take much less power. And the reason they take much less power is because they're not losing anything to heat. Now there is some heat loss, but so little heat loss that it takes a lot less energy to get the same amount of light out of it. And so much more efficient, much better. And you significantly reduce the risk of, your Christmas tree catching on fire because of your incandescent bulbs.
Yeah.
So now it's just a nice Christmas tree. You don't have to worry about it burning up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of energy consumption, when you get smacked because you left the light on when you were a kid, and I think that, nowadays it's not nearly as bad of a deal.
Yeah.
Even in just the standard light bulb, they've transitioned that to sometimes filament, like fluorescent style, where it has the little tube inside of it, or as well now LED tech, where they look like shaped like that.
Right.
I have a front porch light that has, the rain, all the array of colors that you can do. I can customize it for Christmas and Halloween and all that. But it's all, I have an app that tells me how to do that on my LED screen, LCD. But anyway, like it's this idea that like the efficiency of that has zero power draw, like literally to run it. Yeah. And it'll run for, I think what's the capacity? Usually they say that it's like 8 to 10 years longer than a traditional bulb.
Oh yeah. So, and then, I mean, you've got your note up there on the thing. With solar powered LED on top of that, I mean, you're not using any electricity at all. You're getting the solar power and then you're powering those lights and there's no output from the electrical grid to run simple LEDs.
I have solar motion lights around my property. So when like one is right outside of my back door, my dogs, I let them out. And as soon as they walk out, I don't turn on my porch light. I have a really bright LED porch light. So I don't do that one because it lights up the neighbor's house, So I let that one turn, the little solar power one. And it's first thing in the morning. So it's been sitting in the dark all night long, but it hasn't been used. So once they come out, all of a sudden that lights up and it lights up all of my back walkway and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's perfect. I have one there, one on my driveway, and it's just handy. I just screwed it into the wall and I'm like, done.
Yeah.
Super easy. So,
but yeah, all this tech is just, it is so effective at making our life better. You know? And yeah, I mean, now we have technology where there's no extra heat loss. It's super cheap to run because it doesn't take any power or hardly any power. If you've got the solar stuff, it takes no electricity other than the solar, and you're good to go, And we've become so used to it and so tied to it that to lose it would just be devastating.
Yeah. So I think, some of the other things is like LED tech, even some like, I don't know if it applies the same, but like laser tech, some of the elements of how to harness some of lighting and use of lighting is, what is it, infrared or something like that, or infrared lighting?
So for like TVs or whatever?
No, I don't know if it's necessarily TVs, but like medical wise, like, I go to a chiropractor that uses like a infrared laser treatment thing.
Infrared laser treatment.
Yeah. It's warm. It's nice. But other than the thing you're about to make bunk,
I won't go into that. But yes, we use lasers. I mean, laser light shows for your Trans-Siberian Orchestra concerts.
I think it's just interesting to think to stand back and go, what if we didn't have it? What if we didn't have the lights? Like, what if we were still gas lanterns or kerosene lanterns?
It'd be a much darker world.
Yeah. Duh.
Well, all the carbon, all the, just not having as much light, all the carbon emissions, all that stuff. It would just be a darker, darker world.
Yeah. I was trying to think about like how did they do the gas lanterns back in the day? Like what I didn't know what gas they were, because if you go far enough back, it's oil lanterns. Mm-hmm. And they had to go around and light the oil lanterns, not like, you know, city lights in New Jersey would have had a piping system, piping gas to those lanterns or those lights. But that even going like, okay, how are they refining that gas? Like that's maybe a different topic for a different time.
Yeah.
But my brain went there. I was like, and now we're replacing it with this, with the effort to make it more efficient. And you see that perpetually over the years and over history in the last 140 years, it's really done a good job. Well, 220 years, sorry, because the 1800 was the light bulb, late 1700s. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. No, it's 1870s.
Yeah. So 150 years ago.
150 years. Okay. So I guess for me, I just think about how that's really progressed, and that you're right. It would be a really dark age if we just still were dependent on this other form of energy that was contaminating our earth because of our overusage of it.
Yeah.
We still overuse it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's take a quick moment to talk about something that's just as illuminating as a light bulb. Your financial future. If you've ever felt like your finances are stuck in the dark, our Financial Empowerment membership is here to light the way. With tools, insights, and supportive community, we'll help you take control of your money and make it work for you. Whether you're starting out or looking to optimize your financial game, this membership is your power switch to financial freedom. Check out the link in the show notes to join today, or link in the description, I suppose, and start brightening your financial journey today. Now, back to the show.
All right.
So, how have we gone from, I guess let's cover some advantages to this continuous availability of light. When we use something like gas in a lantern, or I think about, even as a light bulb, a flashlight would eventually run out of energy, right? It would run out of power and you wouldn't have it anymore. But being that our society, if you're connected to the grid, is normally going, unless there's some kind of power outage, you have 24/7 operation of power.
Yeah.
And so with that, you can turn your nights, rather than it being a function that you just go to bed and wake up the next day and take on the world when the sun's up, now we go, well, now you can do everything all the time and not stop. Sounds like a terrible idea to me, because you're gonna need sleep sometime. But I think one of the things that really looks at is, night. I think about, I've done a night shift. I've worked nights, and although they're not fun, they are possible.
Yeah.
And I was actually, I was a night shift as a mechanic for a diesel shop. So I was working, doing diesel repairs on trucks in the middle of 3 a.m. in the morning kind of stuff, I also did I did a stint at Amazon, like it was prison. Yeah. But I did that, and when I was there, like they had big halogen lights in the ceiling, lighting up everything, and that was substantial. That was a big operation, but that's machinery and everything running constantly, lit up the whole place all night long.
Yeah, there is no such thing as night anymore.
No. You talk about Vegas or New York when they reference cities that don't sleep. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think that there's a lot of cities that really start behaving that way. You go towards California, cities don't sleep. Denver.
Oh, anywhere you go. If you've ever done a drive at night, so a road trip, you're getting close to a city, because there's this dome of light that you see in the distance, and you're getting close. Doesn't matter what city it is. Right. That's when you're getting close to a city. And any city that you go to, any city, that will be there. You will always have it. So, I mean, even small cities like Denver or, Salt Lake or anything like that, you will always have that dome of light over that city.
Yeah, I was traveling here, like even down south, traveling through the mountain ranges and coming up on the next city. And I was like, oh man, that glow is like, and it wasn't even a very, like a big town. It was just this little thing. And I was like, wow, that's lighting up the whole ridge line.
Yeah, and everything is always lit. You've always got the streetlights, you've got the businesses, you've got the neons for the food or the hotels or anything like that. Those are always on. And so it's always lit. And it's just, there are always people up. There's always someone doing something.
And I think, there's benefits to that in our society because there are services that need to be available 24/7.
Yeah.
Because if other people are awake, things like accidents can happen. So you want a hospital to be having its lights on.
Right.
You want somebody awake, ready to respond to something like that. You want, you want a first thing in the morning trip on your diesel truck, and I've got to work on it. So all those sorts of things are what made it possible for us not to have to just, okay, lights are out because the sun's down, so I can't do anything else. And this torch that I'm holding here is not gonna cut it. So it really made our society, have an additional 12 hours of time that it could use each day.
Yep.
But I also think about like underserved parts of the world that now are introduced with that. I mean, like I wouldn't say now, but for the most part, there's a lot of areas in our majority of the world has some form of electricity. You know, obviously there's probably third world country areas that don't.
Right.
But generally speaking, even there, you have people walking around with smartphones.
Yeah.
So you're like, you still have light sources that are happening there. And a lot of that's saying like, okay, well, even if that was all you had and you had a grid to plug it in, you couldn't really get like too much more than that. You have the ability to, shine a light on reading material, educational material, all that kind of stuff. So the advancement doesn't just shine a light on the availability to get a job done. It advances our society in learning capabilities.
Oh, yeah.
And medical help. And, just culturally, things like neon art and that kind of stuff. It's crazy to think that sometimes even some of the biggest depictions are just giant light features, light structures. I mean, our in New York, the ball that drops is just a light ball.
Yeah.
A ball of light that just falls from the top of whatever tower.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest problems though is the light pollution. So I mean, even talking about the the dome over any city, anywhere you go, if you go try to see the stars or anything like that, if you're close to a city, you're not going to be able to see it because of the light pollution.
Not nearly. Yeah. I mean, even if you go to like a small town, you're still struggling with the light pollution at this point. But yeah, go to the middle of nowhere when it's pitch black, and that sky is breathtaking.
It is amazing. But yeah, and so I mean, there's some downsides to the technology that we have. I don't think they outweigh the positives, the great advancements that we have. But there is a give and take with any kind of technology.
Yeah.
Even the light bulb.
Yep. I think that there's some initiatives out there that are trying to do this. I don't know how effective it's going to be, but I think one element is, I think behaviorally or biologically, sometimes we use lights to help grow plants.
Yeah.
Sometimes we use lights for different colors of lights to help us sleep, while other colors of lights help us or would keep us awake. And so if you have either one of those in the middle of your sleep in the middle of the night, it's going to affect how you sleep. Even a tiny little blinking light is going to affect how you sleep. You won't notice it until later. You're going to have some kind of, all of a sudden I'm really stressed out. I don't know what's going on. And now you're seeing a therapist because you have a stupid light blinking in your bedroom. I'm not going to say it's going that far, but I think that there's a program called Dark Sky. I'm not really sure too much about it, so I'm not going to go on to it, but it's aimed to really kind of go after what is light pollution, what is the things that were affected by light, and how can we reduce those things by finding alternative measures. So let's flick a switch on today's episode one more time. We started with the groundbreaking invention of the light bulb. Mr. Swan should be credited for that.
Yes.
Explored how lighting has evolved from incandescents to LEDs, and discussed how artificial light has transformed society from work to leisure to the environment. Here's the big question. How can we balance our use of light to maximize its benefits while minimizing its downsides? Maybe it's as simple as appreciating the light we have, or turning off a few switches to enjoy the stars. Here's a question: is what's your favorite way to use light creatively in your life? Is it puppets on a wall? Or, is it
Light brights.
light brights? Oh, those are fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Gotta love the light brights. I think
And-
they're making a comeback.
Yeah, they are.
Oh.
You can get them. They're good. They're good Christmas gifts, definitely.
There you go.
And how do you think the evolution of light will shape our future? What's next? We have one of the most efficient bulbs, but that probably started with the incandescents, but those being one of the most efficient bulbs. And no, that will burn the crap out of your hand.
But yeah, what's next after the LED?
Yeah.
Is there something else?
I think about fiber optics because I've seen those carry light, and it's really crazy. I don't know. It's fascinating to look back at it all, see its evolution and how far we've come. And yet that's just tapping into it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. All right. Well, time for Jokes with Joe.
All right, here we go. All right. What did one snowman say to the other?
Do I snow you?
No?
No. Okay. Sorry. That was terrible. What?
All right, you want to know? Mm-hmm. Do you smell carrots? I love that one.
That was good. That was good. All right. We have reached the end of our show for today. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, to comment if you want. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Life's too short. So keep laughing, keep learning, and remember, idiots have way more fun.
Check your shoes.